The 360 on Energy and Carbon, hosted by 360 Energy. On today's episode, we are joined by Jeanette Hill from CPA Canada. Jeanette Hill, CPA CMA, is a Director of Sustainability and Value Creation in the Member Development and Support area at CPA Canada. This includes strategic direction and product line management for professional development in her respective content areas. Jeanette has worked in industry previously with a leading worldwide health food company. She obtained her Bachelor of Business Administration from Simon Fraser University in British Columbia and has served as a not-for-profit board director. Now let's get into the episode with Jeanette. Welcome back, Dave and John.
Well, thank you, Lysandra. And John, good day. How are you?
Good, thank you. It's good to be back. Here we go again.
Today we're joined by an exciting guest. Welcome, Jeanette Hill from CPA Canada.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
To kick off this episode, who is CPA Canada and what do they do?
Yeah, so Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, CPA Canada, is one of the largest national accounting organizations in the world. CPA Canada provides resources to support independent standard setting processes, and we support our members throughout their careers with thought leadership in the profession. And we also focus on establishing international partnerships to strengthen the accounting profession globally. Nationally, we're focused on empowering financial literacy among Canadians. And of course, we cannot carry out our essential work without partnership with our provincial, territorial, and Bermudian CPA bodies. So we wear many hats.
Well, Jeanette, I'm really pleased that you're here because in the work that we do, we try to work very closely with financial people within organizations because they play a pivotal role to actually confirm and validate sort of savings and to demonstrate the bottom line it does for customers when they start taking action on energy and carbon. So this is why I'm so pleased. So can you explain to our audience what roles accountants can play in the sustainability initiatives in their organization?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So I'll start by saying that environmental, social, and governance issues, so ESG and sustainability issues, are really about looking at risk-adjusted returns over the long term for an organization. So sustainability issues impact company value, business models, and ultimately that long-term ability of an organization to create value. And so creating controls and processes to manage risks and opportunities is a core area for CPAs and an area where they already add a lot of value to businesses. And applying those skills to sustainability risks and opportunities is really an extension of those core skills that CPAs already possess. Reporting trends are moving towards more forward-looking information, and an increasing amount of enterprise value is becoming based on intangible assets. So in order to more fully understand the key roles that accountants will continue to play, I think it's important to highlight that investors and stakeholders have been asking for higher quality, reliable, comparable information for sustainability disclosures for quite some time. Currently, we have several sustainability reporting standards, frameworks, and initiatives that exist, and organizations and investors must navigate this landscape. And that's really why the announcement at COP26 on the formation of the International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB, was so important. And by the way, CPA Canada helped pave the way for the creation of the ISSB Center in Montreal. And the creation of this ISSB brought together several organizations, standard setters, with the intent to deliver a global baseline of sustainability-related disclosures for more informed decision-making. And I'll also add that we have a newly formed Canadian Sustainability Standards Board, which will work in lockstep with the international board. And one of the functions of this Canadian board will be to provide a formal mechanism by which Canadian interests feed into international standard setting. And this is a similar function to what already happens in the world of financial accounting and auditing. So given the work of all of these standard setters and also regulators, which I didn't mention, such as the Canadian Securities Commissions and the SEC in the US, CPAs are going to be looked upon to play an increasingly important role in helping their organizations understand what factors are material in sustainability reporting, and also to better understand the relationship between ESG issues and organizational strategy and risks. And also CPAs are going to be critical to help bridge the gap between sustainability reporting and financial reporting. So I would also just end by saying that CPAs are going to bring the same rigor and credibility to sustainability information in the same way that they do traditional streams of reporting.
Thank you for that. You mentioned COP26, but not COP27, and I know exactly why. We've done a podcast on COP27, and I'm not sure in many ways it's changed much of the practical landscape. But one of the things we know, I mean, there was a lot of talk at COP26 about net zero, and it's something we hear an awful lot about, and we've talked about on a number of our podcasts. But I'd like to ask you, what role can accountants play specifically in the net zero journey of an organisation?
Yeah, so given their varied skill set, CPAs can add significant value to this net zero journey. As I just mentioned, many skills that CPAs have are very transferable when it comes to sustainability data in general, and that also includes the net zero journey. So, for example, physical risks related to climate change are rapidly increasing. There's increasing extreme weather events like the Texas grid failure in 2021 and increasing floods and other global events. And these require sound decision making when it comes to allocating limited funds in an organization for capital allocation, and also when it comes to updating infrastructure, for example, as well. And sound decision making is also required for evaluating trade-offs to be made when it comes to transition risks like reputation and market risks associated with not taking climate action, in addition to evaluating risks around policy and compliance and legislation. So CPAs can definitely help with analyzing financial scenarios to quantify costs when it comes to these capital and other investments on the net zero journey. And CPAs are also going to be essential to help organizations come up with quantifiable objectives and metrics on that net zero pathway. So CPAs, as I mentioned earlier, are already crucial to informing strategy and risk and measuring performance against that strategy. And CPAs are also very skilled in the G part of ESG, so the governance piece. CPAs have the right skill sets to implement internal controls and processes that teams will be able to follow to achieve the metrics and targets that are set along the net zero journey. So I feel that CPAs will be increasingly asked to help take a leading role in establishing these emissions reductions plans and tracking the progress against those plans and communicating those net zero plans externally via disclosures and reporting. So all that being said, I'll end off with the fact that CPAs won't be in this journey alone. It's going to be key to work with many areas of the organization on this net zero journey to bring together the wide variety of skill sets that's needed to achieve not only the net zero, but sustainability targets in general. And CPA Canada is actually embarking on our own net zero journey, and we very much look forward to walking this walk with our members and other members of the business community.
Yes, thank you for that. I thought it's interesting that you mentioned the G, because it's in ESG, we seem to talk a lot about E, a little less about S. We almost forget G, but G, if you like, you probably agree, it provides an essential framework, doesn't it, for the delivery and the understanding of what's going on. So I think that's nice to hear G come in from once in a while.
Absolutely.
I thought that what you just stated at the end was really critical. One, you reinforced the importance of VAs because that's actually the credibility behind this whole ESG thing. And then the other item that you mentioned, that this isn't a journey that you need to take on your own. You need a variety of people to participate this in the organization. So my question is, what can CPAs and other business professionals do to educate themselves in ESG and sustainability as a core area to be effective and bridge sustainability and financial performance? That's the mix, that financial performance and sustainability. Can you share with us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And education in this space is really key for all areas of the organization to effectively add value to the sustainability journey. And as a profession, we're looking at the way that sustainability accounting changes the way we're educating CPAs. We recently initiated a comprehensive review of our pre-certification program and our competency map to include areas like sustainability, which is very exciting. And we're also looking closely at how we build upon required skills and competencies for CPAs that are already practicing to ensure they're well positioned to tackle these new challenges. Because as I mentioned, a lot of the skills that CPAs already have are very transferable to help with sustainability and ESG risks and opportunities. And there's a wealth of resources out there for not only CPAs, but other business professionals to educate themselves in sustainability. And CPA Canada is releasing a 4-course certificate program this winter. And it will go through the history and evolution of social movements and conference of the party meetings to level set on how we got to this point that we're at today. It will also include a history of various standards and frameworks, which will be very helpful. And then we're going to move in from that program to base knowledge of many ES&G risks and opportunities, and then go a step further with the last 2 courses to actually apply these learnings in a case-based environment. And our program is very unique in that it does not focus on one issue or standard, but it provides a holistic view of many standards and frameworks. So we're really excited to see this released. And in addition, at CPA Canada, we have a large volume of publications on our website with free guidance on key issues. And I'll say that although these are designed with CPAs in mind, many business professionals can take these and benefit from the knowledge. And if not CPA Canada, there's many other areas that business professionals can go to educate themselves in sustainability. And if it's available, we can also put a link in the show notes for those interested in some of these opportunities.
I think for
Of
sure
course.
we'll want to do that. Absolutely. And what you've stated, this whole educational piece we found is really critical, Jeanette, because there's so many people that don't know what to do and how to do it. So the fact that the CPAs are providing this information and this education, I think it's a really important piece to advance this whole area.
It absolutely is, yeah. Getting that base skill is very important.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Talking about base skills and things, not quite the same, but from the CPA point of view, what kind of data would need to be collected for sustainability reports, and what is the importance of having good data?
Yeah, that's a great question. So relevant data is absolutely needed to support organizational strategies and decision making, and to effectively analyze and track performance and corporate value, whether it's net zero journey or any other areas of sustainability. So it's really essential for organizations to understand what data, both qualitative and quantitative, is most relevant to their organization given their unique operating circumstances and unique operating environment. I would say it's essential for organizations to understand current data sources that they have and what information you do and don't already collect, as well as understanding how that ties into how your management information systems work. It's also essential to understand how information is captured and reported to be able to identify those gaps in internal controls for your data. Again, going back to that governance piece. Some of the challenges with sustainability data, however, is that some of it, as is the case with certain emissions data related to the use of an organization's products and services, so Scope 3 data, resides outside of an organization's direct control. So that can be a challenge. In addition, many sustainability issues don't fully lend themselves to measurement in the same way as economic factors. And I would say the absence of standardized methodologies to account for sustainability data makes it really difficult, as I've mentioned before, to have that consistent and comparable data for both internal and external stakeholder decision making. So again, I'll reinforce that this is why it's so important that we continue to move towards that global baseline of sustainability standards for that consistency and comparability, which is what many stakeholders have been asking for quite some time. I'll also add that another challenge is that unlike financial data, where we have a wealth of historical information to compare and well-established and understood standards for consistency in information that's reported, with sustainability information, we're really beginning at that baseline, and organizations have to start with establishing their own baseline against which to measure progress. So that's a new concept. So I would add that although this landscape is shifting towards that global baseline, many companies shouldn't wait for that to be clarified. They should start now, because it's becoming a business imperative to track and report on sustainability data. So if organizations are looking for more guidance on what data to collect, I would say a good place to start is to look at what standards are already out there. A good place to start is actually the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board standards, the SASB standards, which are actually now part of IFRS Foundation and the ISSB. And these standards are really great because they outline key risks and opportunities that are industry specific. So those can be a helpful guideline for companies to evaluate risks and opportunities that might be material for their organization. So this can actually really help with what data an organization might want to collect.
Could I put a supplementary here? I mean, it's interesting you're talking about standards, and for a bit of background, I've been a committee member of both ISO and the British Standards Institute on development of standards. And I take on board exactly what you're saying, that we're moving into an area where we don't necessarily have all the standards that we need. So what's your advice to the professional when they're presented with an area where there may be more than one standard that don't necessarily align, or standards that are not there? And how do you square that with the comment that you made? And I agree with you, you should be doing something now.
Yeah, I would say to really, as I mentioned earlier, evaluate the key risks and opportunities for your organization, and to look at what standards best suit your own unique operating circumstances, because this isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all model. I would also go into the concept of materiality and what is material for a company's business, for what data they should report on.
Thank you.
That is a perfect segue. And that is, Jeanette, how does the concept of materiality play into what data a company should report on?
Yeah, so materiality assessments are critical to making decisions about what information to disclose and how to present it. And under international financial reporting standards, information is material if omitting, misstating, or obscuring it could reasonably influence the decisions of the primary users of the financial statements, which are investors and providers of capital. Materiality assessments for sustainability disclosures can be challenging because there's differing views about what the meaning of the definition is and how to apply it when it comes to sustainability. In addition, as I've mentioned several times, what's material to a company will vary depending on their unique operating circumstances. And within the sustainability landscape, there's different approaches to assessing materiality. So some are very investor focused, which is referred to as single materiality, and more financial focused, while others are multi-stakeholder driven. So that goes into the concept of double materiality, where it's not only financial, but also the effects on society. And that goes back to what I was saying about how a company can decide what the best reporting standard is for them. I think it really depends on their unique operating circumstances and what approaches to materiality they're going to take within an organization. And how materiality is defined and applied in a particular jurisdiction under securities law also should be carefully considered as well. So I'll end off by saying that more guidance is forthcoming from the International Sustainability Standards Board on how to apply materiality in the context of sustainability reporting. So I would encourage listeners to keep an eye on that.
Thank you for that. That actually leads us on to the next question. In the journey of sustainability reporting, people will start off and they will get together what they've got and they will start reporting it. And then at some point, somebody will suggest to them, well, shouldn't you be having some kind of third-party assurance on that? So my question is, can you give us some insights into sustainability assurance?
Absolutely. So, of course, independent assurance on sustainability disclosures absolutely enhances the credibility of that information and provides users with more confidence in the quality of sustainability reporting. So the possibility of requiring assurance over greenhouse gas emissions and other reporting is a key area of focus for regulators and standard setters globally. There's actually currently specific assurance standards which can be applied to these types of engagements. The majority of these engagements currently are limited assurance engagements, and it's most common for greenhouse gas emissions. These engagements are actually conducted not only by accountants, but consultants and other professionals. So this is a key area of focus, and the International Auditing and Assurance Standards Board recently introduced a project on the need for new sustainability assurance standards, and it aims to release those in the later half of 2023 for comment. So this is a key area of focus for regulators and standard setters, and again, I would encourage listeners to keep an eye for developments in this area.
Thank you for that, Jeanette. You mentioned there limited assurance. I think it's worth pointing out that there's quite a detailed definition of what limited assurance is. But basically, it's an approach where there's nothing that would alarm you about what you're looking at in terms of reporting it, as opposed to having gone through everything with a fine-tooth comb and saying it's absolutely accurate. And it is the normal level that you would start at with sustainability assurance.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jeanette, for your time today. To end off today's episode, what is the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
So I would say the biggest takeaway would be that ESG and sustainability are no longer a nice to have. It's now a business imperative. Having core literacy on ESG and sustainability topics is key to ensuring the right stakeholders within your organization are involved in this work. And I would encourage listeners to check out the educational programs and resources to help upskill staff to have the literacy that they need to speak the language across the organization and be that bridge to integrate sustainability information for more effective decision making. And as mentioned earlier, CPA Canada has programs like our upcoming certificate program, resources, and also an upcoming ESG symposium for May 30th and 31st in 2023 to support business professionals in deepening their knowledge. And again, if we're able to, we can put those in the show notes for the listeners.
Of course, thank you. Dave, what's your takeaway from today?
My takeaway, Lysandra, is a degree of hopefulness, because I think I'll speak for John on this. We've worked in the energy field for so many years, and that clients typically haven't internalized managing energy within organizations really well. And as we've addressed before, 80% of the carbon emissions come from energy usage. So the fact that CPAs are putting in a management structure in play to actually measure and report on progress, I think I'm really excited about it, because now I think more and more organizations will understand and see that carbon emissions are controllable. And actually, they'll also reinforce that it's actually good business. They'll start seeing the impact on the bottom line. So I'm really liking and hearing the formalization of CPAs being involved in that whole process.
Thanks for that, Dave. John?
Yeah, I found this interesting. I mean, just a bit of back history. Some time ago, I used to work for one of the major accounting firms, and I was there in their management consultancy side. And I can remember back then, and we're talking a few years back, how critical I thought it was to get chartered accountants, CPAs, whatever they're called in whichever jurisdiction, involved. And I came across one or two cases where they had got involved, and it made a really significant difference. And I think we've always pushed this idea that energy performance improvement, carbon improvement, business improvement, whatever way you do it, you need a cross-functional, cross-discipline approach to it. And it's really good to see that CPA Canada is supporting that view.
Thanks for that, John. All right, Dave, Jeanette, John, thanks for your time today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's all for today's episode of the 360 on Energy and Carbon podcast. Thanks for listening. Make sure to check us out on our website at 360energy.net and follow us on LinkedIn at 360energy Inc. Tune in to our podcast on Apple Music, Spotify, Anchor, or other listening platforms by searching the 360 on Energy and Carbon. You can watch the video recording and subscribe on YouTube at 360 Energy Inc. Email us your feedback at podcast@360energy.net or comment on our LinkedIn posts. See you next week.